Recognizes Ranking Member Graves for the purpose of introducing our first witness.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to introduce a friend of mine, Charlie Kruse, who's from Dexter, Missouri. He and his wife farm down in Dexter, Missouri, which is some of the best ground you can find in the state of Missouri. Charlie's the president of the Missouri Farm Bureau and is testifying on behalf of the American Farm Bureau, which is the nation's largest general farm organization. Charlie, it's always good to see you, and I thank you for making the trip out here to testify before the Small Business Committee on such an important issue.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. Thank you so much for having this hearing today and giving us an opportunity to express our views on this very important issue. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to testify before this committee with my good friend, Ranking Member Sam Graves. We've been friends a long time, and I have great respect for Sam. My name is Charlie Kruse. I'm a fourth-generation farmer from Dexter, Missouri, in the Boot Heel of the state of Missouri. I serve as president of the Missouri Farm Bureau, and I'm very pleased to offer this testimony on behalf of the American Farm Bureau Federation and farmers and ranchers nationwide. We appreciate the invitation to comment on the regulatory implications and associated costs to small business of deleting the term navigable from the Clean Water Act. The cases I'm going to tell you about are real, and they show that small words do indeed make a big difference sometimes. If we were to take the word navigable out of the Clean Water Act and let the Corps of Engineers and EPA regulate all interstate and intrastate waters, many more farmers and ranchers will be caught in regulatory quicksand that can mean years of delay and over $1 million in costs. A study backs up what farmers and ranchers have been telling all of us. It takes 2 to 4 years to prepare and obtain a 404 permit. The average cost can range from over $270,000, and that figure doesn't include the cost of mitigation, design changes, and the cost of carrying capital, down to several $1,000s. In either case, a very large sum of money for someone trying to operate a small business. The first example is about a farmer who wanted to transition his pasture land to grape production and was told that he had to obtain a 404 permit. It took 2 years for the agencies to issue the permit. The farmer spent over $6,000 in consulting fees, over $3,000 in permit and mapping fees, and over $135,000 to mitigate 10 acres that were arguably not wetlands. The second example is about a small farmer who wanted to improve the existing drainage on 11 acres of his land. He first went to USDA, who told him they did not consider his land a wetland. He then went to the state agency that had jurisdiction over this issue in his state. The state agency told him the same thing. They did not consider his land a wetland. Therefore, he would not need to have a permit. But the Corps of Engineers did tell him that he had to have a permit. They told him he needed both a permit and 17.7 acres of mitigation. The cost of compliance, $77,000, more than the property was worth, and the farmer just simply couldn't afford to comply, so he left his land as it was. The third example is about private ponds and lakes. I dare say that practically every, if not every, member of Congress has privately owned lakes and privately owned ponds in their state. In my state of Missouri, we have a large number of ponds. We have over 300,000 ponds, privately owned ponds in the state of Missouri. If the word navigable were to be taken out of the Clean Water Act, the federal government would then have jurisdiction over every privately owned pond and every privately owned lake, not only in the state of Missouri, but in every state in the nation. That is just something that makes no sense to us in any way. Lastly, I want to highlight the regulatory treatment of prior converted cropland. Deleting the term navigable opens the door for the agencies to regulate the use and value of over 55 million acres of cropland. a value conservatively estimated to be $110 billion. The 1993 regulation codified long-standing policy of not treating prior converted cropland as a water of the United States and recognized that prior converted cropland could be used for either agricultural or non-agricultural uses. Changing this important regulatory exemption will devastate and devalue the assets of hundreds of thousands of landowners currently making plans to use their property, sell development rights, or give conservation easements. We as farmers consider our land our 401k. In many cases, that's all that a farmer has. And to dramatically reduce the value of this land, which if we remove the word navigable from the Clean Water Act, is something that we think would be a very devastating process. So we would urge you to keep the word navigable in the Clean Water Act as it's been for years and years since its inception. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.